Good evening and warm welcome to this 91st Leadership Conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the young leader today we have with us, Mr. Sathya Raghu Mukkapati. Satya, welcome to you. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us.
My pleasure.
Great.
Thanks for having me over.
Wonderful. What I'll do now is I'll do a brief intro and then hand it over to you to start the session. We are quite excited and the topic is very, very interesting. And it is not that the people who go to offices generally talk about this kind of topic, but we have leaders from all sections and all domains. And this will be extremely useful, one, to create awareness, and another one, to become extremely sensitive and explore opportunities in agri sector as well. And I'm sure your leadership is going to be very infectious, and it will create many more enthusiasts to get into agriculture as a sector to innovate and also redefine. I will now share my screen and make this intro. As I mentioned to you, this is Wise Views Leadership Conversations. We have been hosting these conversations every Friday over the last 1.5 years. And today is the 91st in the series. We are extremely happy that we have Mr. Sathya Raghu with us. He is going to talk about reimagining agriculture and redefining innovation. So the brief intro followed by a talk from Mr. Sathya, and then we'll have a Q&A. So the young leader is the co-founder and president of Kheyti and Cosmos Green. These are the two startups which are working to help small and marginal farmers rise out of poverty. He is actually a CA turned farmer and agri entrepreneur now. Cosmos Green builds large farms to carry out climate smart agriculture for agri innovations, while Kheyti delivers micro greenhouses to smallholder farmers to double their climate resilient incomes. Mr. Sathya is interestingly a 2014 Acumen Fellow, a 2016 Aspen New Voices Fellow, 2018 Rainer Arnold Fellow, and 2020 TED Fellow. A very, very interesting accomplishments for Sathya. He recently delivered a talk in TED Global Climate Countdown in Scotland. Satya's startup Kheyti, which is one of the startups, won the prestigious Earthshot Prize, which is considered as Eco Oscars, very recently in December 2022, and received £1 million and an award from Prince William of the British royal family. Sathya is a dad of 2 wonderful kids and a passionate Himalayan motorbiker. This is yet another very interesting description to the leader, Himalayan motorbiker. Very interesting. Welcome, Sathya. Once again, I'll also now introduce my colleague, Professor Prasad. He's the director for academic wing at ICFAI Group. He's now heading and directing the online MBA program, which we launched about a year back. His focus areas are strategy and entrepreneurship, and he brings with himself 3 decades of rich experience. He was an entrepreneur himself and also a respectable corporate leader, and now an academic leader at ICFAI. He holds a BTech from IIT Bombay and MBA from IIM Kolkata. He published several articles, edited books, and also presented papers in conferences within India as well as outside India. Welcome, Professor Prasad, to this conversation.
Thank you.
I will now stop sharing my screen and join the enthusiastic audience to listen to the young leader, Sathya, who is present here. We are all here, Sathya. It's not easy to be a leader at a very young age, and especially come up with game-changing entrepreneurial ventures. And that's what Sathya has been working on. And if you really track his life and times, it is extremely interesting, which we will come to know from the horse's mouth, how one has actually, from being a CA, how one has moved on to becoming an entrepreneur like this. I think all the enthusiastic members who have joined will stand to gain and understand these interesting aspects to his personality. And agriculture, as old as it can be, has always been very interesting. And sometimes the discussions are not complete. And wherever we have left gaps and focused on non-agriculture jobs, I think some leaders like this have entrenched themselves and identified the gaps and started working on helping. It's a huge sector, not just for this country, for anyone. And I'm sure people like Satya are required in big numbers. We will very soon understand how he has crafted his way and what are the initiatives he has taken up to build where it is currently. Interestingly, he is also a Himalayan motorbiker. Yeah, Satya, we can hear your voice.
Yeah. Thank you. Firstly, thanks a lot for having me over, and I'm excited to interact with our friends joining from different parts of the country, or hopefully other parts of the world as well. It's a story that I just want to share about. Maybe in about 15-20 minutes, I'll just synthesize what we learned, and after that, I'd love to have a lot of conversation based on the questions and areas that you want me to touch upon. So while you did talk about Cosmos Green and Kheyti, I'll be sharing a little more about the work, what we do at Kheyti, and just touch upon very briefly what we do at Cosmos Green. So I'm a chartered accountant by qualification, and I did internship with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then once I was done with my internship, I moved out when I was in my early 20s to start farming.
Looks like a poor connection there from Satya's end. Sir, anything you would like to mention, sir? Professor Mahendra Reddy, kindly unmute yourself and speak, sir.
So it's an interesting topic you have chosen, Professor Mr. Sudhakar Rao.
Thank you, sir.
It's an interesting topic. It's very agriculture, how his ideas are very important. There's about 50% of the population live in agriculture sector in India.
Yes.
And it contributes only less than 20% of the GDP. So what challenges are there? How we transform it is an important session you have chosen, an important speaker.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I look forward to listening to him.
Wonderful, sir. I will convey this thing, and he will be joining very soon. There is some technical glitch at his end. But as you highlighted, this is a very integral part of our economy and our culture. And for all young leaders, we need to know about this more. And probably, in fact, I want to also share here that a large number of questions have come, which is an indication of the fact that the participants also are quite curious about knowing more in terms of the new trends in agriculture, how we can add technology to agriculture and try and improve the yield and efficiencies. I think there are varieties of questions, not just technology front, but also entrepreneurial angle questions, and also sustainability questions have come. It is very interesting, and I'm actually quite eager to know more from Satya the moment he connects. Thank you, sir. Thanks for mentioning that. I think the credit goes to all the participants also, who are making it very interesting week after week.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I think there was a funny technical glitch, but anyway, I'll just go back to presenting my screen. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the patience. So briefly, as I said, I studied chartered accountancy. I worked with PwC briefly for about 3.5 years. When I was in my early 20s, I moved out to start farming. The idea was driven by a little bit of purpose and a little bit of curiosity and maybe a dash of a challenge that I thought would be worth taking on. So it was just a combination of those early 20s idealism, enthusiasm, and euphoria. So that's when we kind of started Cosmos Green, where we wanted to first learn farming. And only if we know how to do farming properly do we have any right to talk about any change that we can probably bring about in the way farming system happens. So that was the broad thinking. And about 3.5-4 years into farming, we realized that having grown vegetables in open field, the reality of what happens today in the farming arena is something like pests or these bugs eat up a lot of the crops. Increased heat is real. We talk about climate change, but increased heat is so real in a country like ours that when heat goes up, the productivity drops, and also water starts drying up fast. And unseasonal rains, even a single rain is enough to get the produce completely ruined. So when you look at farming as an industry in India, sadly, again, this is a business school. So in a business school and folks who are attending a conversation which is led by a business school, you look at predictability and dependability, right? And agriculture in India today is the opposite of that. It is not predictable, it is not dependable. And about 100 million farmers lose money from farming. And 3 out of every 4 is on the verge of quitting farming. And 90% of them do not want their kids to come into farming. Like, obviously, right? Why would you want your kids to come into something which is not making sense? With the reality that maybe in late 2023 or early 2024, we are going to be the world's most populated country. So how does all this add up? So if you look at the gist of all the efforts, what we are trying to put together, I just tried to make a visual summary of that. Incomes before our interventions for farmers are like this. If there is something like a minimum income needed for them to stay above poverty. Now, what is that minimum income needed for them to stay above poverty? 5,000 to 6,000 rupees of reliable, dependable income is all I'm talking about per month. 5,000 to 6,000 rupees of reliable, dependable income per month. If that is the minimum income needed, today, a farmer's life looks like this. They plant, they get some harvest, then again, so basically with that, they kind of go above poverty and they again fall. And again, they make money, again fall. So this life is in and out of the cycles of poverty, which is an extremely painful one. Our thought process was, after our intervention, how do we kind of make it like, say, there is an investment once into an asset. We are calling it a Kheyti greenhouse. Once that investment into that asset happens, there is a more reliable and regular and a dependable income. So the income should be more, it should be reliable, and it should be regular. So how can we create that kind of an income cycle for farmer? So we took an agricultural problem and applied business and mathematical lens to it to see how the cash flows have to look more sensible for the activity of agriculture to work. So this is the journey of Kheyti, where today in Telangana, if open field looks like this without proper technology, with same crop in same field with the right technology, things can look so different. And this is all happening within maybe like an hour of the campus of ICFAI, right? So all this is real, all this is happening. So what exactly do we do? So we call it greenhouse in a box. This is a life-changing asset which sits in 1/10 of an acre. Why am I emphasizing on that? Our Indian land holdings are small. Let's stop calling it a problem, disease of farming. No, let's stop calling all of that. Let's call it a feature. We have to design based on the archetype, our farmer archetype. Good 86% of our farmers are smallholders. So their average land holdings are 2 acres, 3 acres. So considering that, we decided to innovate in something which is like 1/10 an acre, which uses, again, water is drying up, and that is so real. So we use 2% water compared to what is used in the open field farming. So a dramatic reduction in the water. And with an extra 1 hour of work, sometimes it goes to 2 hours or so, but if you take a steady state average over the life cycle of growing, it's about an hour of work, which doubles the farmers' incomes for the archetype of farmers we're talking about, who make about 60,000 to 1 lakh rupees per year from their farming. It doubles their income. Now, fine, this as a technology looks good, but if you look at farmers' life, technology alone is not enough. Their road is filled with blocks. So they have problem with quality inputs, they don't get financing, they don't get right technology, they don't get knowledge to grow what they're supposed to grow and finally market. So technology alone in a country like ours and in a sector like this, ideally, the conventional business wisdom is just do one thing. Don't try to attempt doing multiple things, because you just have to do one thing and do that really well. This is the conventional wisdom. We're in a space where things are broken at way too many levels. We may not do multiple things, but we still need to integrate the solution, connect the dots. Otherwise, overall, the solution fails. So that is why today, along with this greenhouse, we make sure that we connect the farmers to the right input linkages. And over time, we try to make it more, as localized as possible. Similarly, training and advisory to make sure they know how to grow. And if there is a problem, they get to troubleshoot that. And market linkages largely through wholesale markets, to make sure that the produce gets sold. All this in service of them making money. This journey started with the dream that in a decade, we need to reach 1 million farmers. And who is the farmer I'm talking about? A smallholder where overwhelming majority of the people that we serve have less than 1 hectare, which is about 2.5 acres of land. This is the team that came together: Kaushik, me, Soumya, Ayush, plus some incredibly reputed bunch of board and advisors who support us in this journey to make whatever we do a reality. Now, it's a process of doing something good and also building a sustainable enterprise over time, where we have a one-time revenue from selling a greenhouse, and also from the inputs, etc. we have ongoing revenue. All this I just wanted to wrap up in about 5-7 minutes, so that really I get to spend my 15-20 minutes time also spending focusing on what exactly do I mean by reimagining agriculture and redefining this innovation for farmers. The first thing is listening to the unheard voices. When Kaushik and I came together in 2015 to start Kheyti, for 6 months we spent in going to the farmers, traveling villages, hundreds of them, just listening to them. Tell us about your life. What's happening? What's going well? What's not? And what are in the process, we basically tried understanding their aspirations, their unmet needs, their unarticulated needs, their barriers, their motivations. So all these things we really try to dig deep and understand. And that, in the hindsight, is one of the best things that we had done. I never regretted that even a moment. Going and listening to your customers empathetically, not to just put words in their mouth and hear what you want to hear, but going with a clean slate and having that willingness to be wrong. Maybe you had a hypothesis, a willingness to learn something, an insight which tells you that what your bias earlier was is definitely wrong. So a couple of things which really stood out for me from that journey. When we spent time, one of the questions that we understood was, so people keep saying this is what not working, that is not working. When I asked them question, tell me what level of income will make you feel that agriculture is worth it, right? Agriculture is worth it and being a farmer is worth it. Honestly, in my head, I had an answer. Maybe they'll talk about 25,000 a month, 40,000 rupees a month, something like that, for them to feel agriculture is worth it. We were amazed that our farmers had an answer in the range of 5,000 to 10,000 rupees a month. They said, this is our income that we want. This is the income that we want. We want to be sure we get that income. So that was one. And today, if you look at what we have done, everything is backworked to that particular conversation, and which over time, again, it's not just a one-time thing. Even in the last September, we guys went back and kept doing these conversations with farmers to reset our understanding. But that really sharpens our confidence in terms of, and informs our gut as to what are we really solving here? What are we really trying to optimize? Whom are we solving this for? It's not just my bias. It is a user called farmer, and listening to those unheard voices is super important. Another striking thing that I remember from those conversations was when I asked them, okay, you say farming is not working. Tell me, what are the things you tried, and what do you do when you say it's not working? They said, okay, there are a lot of reasons. Some reasons are like increased heat, new types of pests and diseases, water drying up. This is one category. Another category is we are not getting seeds, we are not getting proper fertilizers or financing, etc. These things maybe we know how to solve, but this category of problems like increased heat, water drying up, pests. So broadly, what they didn't use is climate risk, but for that bucket of climate risk, they said, we don't have any solution. We just look up to Almighty and pray. We don't really have any solution for these. It gave us a window into a space which today feels like a zone of hopelessness and helplessness. So that helped us inform as to, hey, do we want to be a company which does everything? Or do we want to be a company which does one thing really well and connects the dots in other things? So in that, like, to pick our specialty and specialization, we said, okay, look, climate risk is one thing for which we heard again and again and again that there aren't too many solutions out there, particularly for smallholder farmers. How do we innovate for them? So that conversation really helped us sharpen the axe in terms of what we do. Second thing is co-create solutions with farmers. Now, farmers here can be replaced with customers. Co-creating solutions with customers. A lot of times, there are these two camps where one camp is, I know everything of what my customer wants. I will design, innovate, and dump it on the customer, and customer will take it, right? And the second is, I will co-create this with a lot of humility and in a more of a lean startup model, where we start with that servant leadership in our mind. It's not coming from a place where I know it and I'll tell you what you need to do. So in our innovations throughout, even the first greenhouse, I remember the way I went and offered it, we took 3 options on the paper and we showed them to a bunch of farmers and asked them, tell me, what are your reactions to this? And what do you like? What do you not like? What do you think should change in this? And this is an iterative process. And we keep doing this quite regularly. Our team spends quite a substantial time with farmers to understand, okay, what do you like about the design? What do you like about, tell me more about how you felt last time when you went into this. So what are the times when you just felt irritated with something, right? And if you were the owner and you were to design it, what are the changes you would make? So how would you describe this to other people, right? That's also important. One of the farmers told us an example or an analogy to describe this greenhouse, saying, hey, if I were to do 1 acre of paddy, that is rice, the amount of water I give in 1 day, that water can last me for 1 year in this greenhouse. It's like, wow, what an imagery is that? Something which would last which would be required for 1 day, that resource is enough for 1 year if you're using in a greenhouse. Now, so creating solution is not limited only to the product or the service. It is also in the way we position this and the way we take this to market. So how do we really co-create the solution and take it to the market with the farmers? So this is a constant journey that really, I can confidently say, we are solving a real problem. I do not know how many people can actually confidently, proudly say this. We are solving a super real problem and super sincerely. And our farmers truly love the solution, not just as a good to have thing, something which they believe is a life-changing asset. And for that to happen, we really needed to co-create the solution with the farmers. The third thing is define impact and measure it. When we started this, as I said, how do we get a reliable, dependable income, climate resilient income, about 60,000 to 1 lakh rupees of extra take-home money for the farmers. Now, that was our North Star that we got anchored to. And for us, we measure our success, not just based on number of greenhouses we sell. Sure, this month we can sell 5 crore worth greenhouses, next month we can sell 10 crore worth greenhouses or whatever. But the point is, what happened after that? Have the farmers made money from those greenhouses? That is the true measure of success. Now that if we build a solution, build an organization, if we are committed enough to make impact more real, not just a nice thing which we can write on the websites. Honestly, how does it matter? If I write 10 million farmers or 10,000 farmers, you are never going to go and count. The point is not that. We redefined, particularly when I was doing Acumen Fellowship, I had an aha moment where I realized depth of impact first. After cracking depth of impact, let us chase breadth of impact. First, let us crack depth of impact, because there are so many solutions which are peripheral. We just talk about scale. Scale what? Scale something which is so insignificant? right? Just for the sake of scale. So something which is so easily replaceable, or something which is, or do you want to scale something which is fundamentally transformative? So for us, that's where we kind of talk about defining impact, measuring it, and constantly rethinking what we should be doing based on the impact what this is generating. When we were designing this greenhouses have been in the world for like 60-70 years, but they were extremely costly. 40-50 lakhs or 30-40 lakhs at least is what they costed. Today our greenhouse starts at an entry point which is around 60,000 rupees. It's not a 30-40 lakh rupees greenhouse. So it's a 60,000 rupees, 50-60,000 rupees worth greenhouse. So it's 1/10 the size, but also it's at least 5x cheaper, more than that cheaper. And it is so much better compared to open field. Our greenhouses give 4 to 7 times more yield. So when we are innovating, today we are in an era of such fast obsolescence and technological evolution and revolution that, simply talking about, oh, this product is 10% better, 20% better. I'm sorry, I don't think the market will have reverence for our product for too long when we are just fractionally, incrementally better. So for us to stay way above the curve, I think we need to be dramatically better than anything that is close and comparable to this. And this is a philosophy which one of our funders really got very strong into our head. First, do no harm. In the process of doing something good, don't go and dump an acid on a farmer's land. Don't get them into situations which will make their life worse off than where they are today. So particularly when we are working with segment of farmers who are just above the line or at that line of poverty, we don't want to do things which will risk them more. So this is also one of the guiding principles in the way we think about the innovation, the way we think about the service, the way we think about the go-to-market strategy and design for scale. But while I said depth of impact is important, I also spoke about how we want to take the solution to 1 million farmers and how we are designing it for scale. So if something is working, it has to scale, and good stuff has to scale and reach more and more farmers, more and more people, so that the good gets amplified. So we design for scale. Like, for example, our design right now is such that it probably can go to at least a third of farmers in the country, right? Based on some parameters. And in terms of crops, I mean, like, not we taking it to a third of farmers, but the solution has potential. Someone else might take it, government might take it, more competitors will come and do it, but it has a potential. Similarly, always earlier greenhouses were for niche crops. Like, you want to grow vegetables like lettuce, broccoli, color capsicum, peppers. Only for those greenhouses were used. We said, hang on, I mean, how much of all these do we eat? When we want to really design for scale in India, we need bhendis of the world to come from that. We need tomatoes of the world. We need spinach of the world. All the regularly consumed vegetables have to be grown. So we today have like a fairly healthy basket of more than 20 vegetables which can be grown in these greenhouses. 20 vegetables which we consume, right, in serious volumes. So that way we know that whether it is Kheyti alone scaling, well, that is not the way we designed it. More and more businesses scaling, government scaling, more organizations getting excited about this space. This is a solution designed for scale, whether or not just the company takes it to scale. And dreaming big is integral to doing anything which will be transformative. One of my teachers while doing CA jokingly in a class used to talk about, hey, say you're going on a road and you found a check which is a bearer check, and he used to ask us, tell me what is the amount on that check. Somebody said 10,000 rupees, somebody said 50,000 rupees, somebody said 1 lakh. He used to he said, hey, hang on, in dreams, why is there this poverty of 10,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees? Come on, write in your dreams that maybe it is like the world's biggest check ever found. Okay, it's like 10,000 crore check. think, first think big. At least it opens up your perspectives. It brings language into your mind. It brings a shared language into your team. And it also brings a lot of collaborators with us who start resonating with the dream. So these are some of the points which I thought I'll share. So so what's special? With very tiny amount of time that the farmers spend, just giving a very little amount of water per day, like 1,000 liters, and in using 1/10 of an acre, using about $1,000 of investment, farmers are able to make 100% return on investment, which is close to $3 of net profit per day. Now, why is it important? $2 is the poverty line in India. So it's a solution which is built with that laser focus that we want this to be a life-changing asset for our smallholder farmers. So I'll pause here and open it up for questions, reflections, any clarifications.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sathya. It's a brilliant presentation. The ground that you've covered is a beautiful landscape of the joy of attempting to solve a real problem, and on the other hand, some bright young team members have discovered a common purpose, which is not just going to reflect their own dreams of some 10 people, but it is connecting with large number of small farmers and connecting their dreams as well. The solution design aspect is something which I'm really amused, quite interesting. This presentation is the delight of any business school to start with, because of its sharp structure and the outcome focused points that you mentioned. Therefore, anybody would like it. And I don't want to waste time praising that, because it has all the good points that one can learn from as far as the presentation is concerned. But more than that, I'm quite really surprised how this has been brought about with a laser sharp focus on the problem and building everything around it. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. The language of the shared language gets into your mind as you mentioned that. I mean, that is interesting more than anything else. What I will now do is, without wasting further time, I request Professor Prasad to start the session 1 for the Q&A. In the initial beginning of the session, I think we lost a few minutes, but we'll now try and catch up. All those members who would like to ask questions can raise their hand and keep your questions ready. I will take it up in the second session, second cluster of questions when I come to handle. We'll now start with the first cluster. Professor Prasad, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. I think the first thing, the thing which remains in my mind after the presentation is here's something very genuine. Genuine in the sense, not just that it gives results, but also the way the problem has been solved and the level of rigor and depth to which it has gone. I think it is exceptional. So here comes the first question then. You moved from being a chartered accountant to an agripreneur, okay, with some technology, greenhouses being right now, I mean, in what you've highlighted being a primary product there. Now, how did this journey happen and how did you reach greenhouse as a solution?
Right. Thank you. So for us, greenhouse was not the obvious choice. We are not even married to greenhouses, by the way. So we are not even anchored to greenhouses as the only solution that we'll be doing in this lifetime. When we started farming in Cosmos Green, we realized that in one season in open field, we were growing in about close to 85 acres of vegetables and a lot of short-term crops. In one season, we make money. In another season, we lose money. So this kind of erraticity over time got us to reflect on our journey. And we said, okay, it's been 3 years plus. We need to get a handle on the problem. And when we started, we said, okay, let's just start. We did all secondary reading, but we were finding it difficult to synthesize the root cause of the problem. So when we got into this rethinking or reflection mode, the 3 simple points that came out were: farming will work if average income goes up. Average income has to go up. Second, deviation from expectation has to come down. Third, income has to be regular. So regular income and income going up can happen with vegetables. So that is how vegetables came into our life. But then the middle piece of this income has to be regular. This income has to be reliable. Like what? Then we kind of unpacked it. What are the factors causing it to be unpredictable? So risk is a function of A, B, C, D, E, like, the way we learn. So in schools. So then we said, okay, when you look at all of that, this bucket of climate risk did not have too many solutions that were of relevance to smallholder farmers given their affordability and their realities of life. So that is when we said, okay, greenhouses make it reliable, but greenhouses are not affordable. They are not at a scale, they are not in a design which are suitable for smallholder farmers. So how do we reimagine agriculture keeping smallholder farmers in the center? So that is how greenhouses came into our life and this journey of Kheyti.
And what about the part where you moved from the practice to farming?
Well, like I said, I did my internship with PwC for about 3.5 years journey is what I've done. After that, I moved out. So that was triggered. It was again just before starting CA, when I went to my village once, I saw an incident where there was a farmer who was sitting next to a farm stream and eating mud, which didn't make any sense to me. When I came back and asked my grandfather about it, like, what is this weird thing that I saw? I was quite angry, upset, helpless. He normalized it even more. He said, yeah, people do that in the village. They add rice starch to mud and eat. And they add, buttermilk to curd and to mud and eat. So he was just normalizing it. I also remember a statement that the farmer said when I asked him why he was eating that. He said, my stomach does not know that my pocket is empty. That was definitely a prominent moment in my life where I really felt unsettled. And even when I was in PwC, I used to read up in my evenings and nights, more secondary research about what happens in agriculture. What is this damn thing of agriculture? What happens here? Who does what? Who are the stakeholders? So I used to just read up. And when I was traveling in PwC, if I went to Bangalore, then I used to, over the weekends, I could have spent some fun time in Coorg, or I could have gone to some villages and spent time in the villages to talk. I did go to Coorg and have fun once or twice, but I also spent time traveling to villages more frequently to understand just spend time and get a sense of that. So that gave me improved understanding that, okay, there is more to it. I'm still not understanding what it is. So that was a point when I said, okay, look, if I just sit here and keep forever cribbing that I'm not understanding the root cause and I'm not understanding how to approach, that's just a cerebral exercise. I didn't want to get stuck in that cerebral exercise. I said, age is on my side. Let me jump into it and, invest a few years into it and figure out what it looks like. So that's how, I moved out of PwC and got into this.
Fantastic. I think there are a number of potential entrepreneurs around who want to pay attention to agri, but I think you have said a few very vital things. If you really want to, first generate the energy, you mentioned how that happened, as well as funnel that energy into something which is very meaningful. Thanks. So we now go to the next question. You have mentioned about how the current venture is sustainable, and from what you say, very evidently it is so. Now, are there any alternative models? For instance, is there something in Cosmos Green, or are there other models that you think will work? Can you explain some of that?
Well, sustainable, just to clarify, so there is still, it's a highly, there are 50 shades of gray, as they say, in what is sustainable. But yes, what we clearly see is we are seeing good evidence of product market fitment. Okay, so for sure. So at what price point, what customer segment, in which geography will buy and use it for what purpose? I think that is an important arc which we need to answer, and we are getting a reasonable handle on that. Okay, so if that's what sustainability means, that's what it is. So Now, of course, there is still more journey in terms of making it, scalable. There are, even for an innovation like this, how does financing turbocharge this to get it to scale? We did try quite a few innovations in financing, but we also realized that always economics and politics don't talk the same language. When I say politics, the socio-political situation of rural areas. So, there can be some of those things where there can be perverse incentives. So, is that the model? Or getting governments excited to take this up in a big way when governments spend, lakhs of crores, towards welfare in the space. Are we also investing enough into asset building in agriculture, income generating asset building in agriculture? It's an important question to ask. And, how do we trigger that? Not simply blaming that governments don't invest, right? How do we create a persuasive case for them to invest, right? So governments are sitting and they need a way to, they need a certain type of communication for people to present to them, and then they act. So that is another arc in itself. So doing that, then maybe lease models for us to scale greenhouses innovations. These are some of the ways in which I think greenhouses and innovations can scale. But climate resilient incomes for agriculture will not be limited only to greenhouses. Greenhouse is an asset, right? It is a template, but there can be more. There are more innovations, like for example, solar-based drip irrigation. We recently came across a company which is doing that. A Swedish company which is trying to do that in India as well. For smallholder farmers, massive focus on smallholder farmers, which that level of focus that they're bringing to smallholder farmers, I was mighty surprised. The way they're thinking about Indian smallholder farmers. So there are companies like that spending time on that. Similarly, we can also reimagine the livestock, right? The livestock management from a similar lens, because these are super interconnected. When you talk about agriculture, ecology, livestock, all these are super interconnected. And for any sensible agriculture to happen, let us keep for a moment the debate of organic, natural, regenerative, all those aside. For any sensible agriculture to happen, there has to be a fair thought given to the ecosystem in which the agriculture happens. So there is a world of opportunity out there, and there are so many interesting innovations happening, and there is so much more scope for a lot of innovations to turbocharge the way the climate journey is happening.
Fantastic. I mean, there seem to be a lot of ideas and a lot of energy also. Now, in terms of the scaling up of your organization, what are the things that you think can happen in the next 3, 4, 5 years?
See, I think one thing I love about my co-founders and even my entire leadership board team, everyone, is we are married to the solution scaling as much as the company scaling. So often people don't make this distinction, because when you innovate, first you want to go and patent. Then you want to restrict other people from using or copying anything that you're trying to do. If anybody is remotely trying to do, you will just find ways to kill, acquire, and rule over. On the contrary, we believe that there is a space for hundreds of people. There's a space for maybe like 100 people, and there might be like 10 approaches in which this will see the true potential of this particular innovation. So, the lens, just a philosophical lens to look at it is, we don't need to care about who innovated mobile phone. Everybody here has that, right? If metaphorically the innovator of mobile phone is somewhere in the heaven or hell, wherever, and just looking at the world, that person must be the happiest person, right? Just in terms of the sheer scale of that disruption, right? Now, we believe that this innovation has a potential to transform agriculture so fundamentally. Climate smart farming, it need not be greenhouse in this way. It can be another form of climate smart technology, right? It can probably just be a sheet. It's not such a big structure. It can just be a sheet. It can just be something much simpler than what it is today, or it can be much more complicated. But the canvas of climate smart farming is what has to scale multifold. And for that, we believe that Kheyti is providing a valuable use case and a sensible inspiration for people to look at, and a template to, let us at least say, feel inspired. I will not even arrogantly call it emulate, but let me at least say feel inspired that, okay, look, we can solve a serious problem in a real way by doing something like this. Now, Kheyti in its own journey is doing a multi-geography expansion now. So we are already in about close to 8 states as we talk. And about a year and a half ago, we were just in Telangana. We were testing things close to ICFAI. And now we are in about close to 8 states. It's growing geographically. Even in terms of the way in which we are scaling this, we tried dealer model, we tried scaling it with partner organizations by collaborating with large community-based organizations. Scaling through them is something that is happening in some geographies. Scaling for, scaling through direct field force is happening in some geographies. Scaling, through dealer networks of other large agri conglomerates is also something that is being contemplated. So there are multi channels that are being contemplated for scaling. And even in terms of the use case for growing vegetables is one use case. For growing nursery, for that nursery in turn to be used to grow vegetables. So like this, there are multiple ways in which we are now, figuring out the ways to get this technology. Besides continuing the work on growing the crop portfolio and the product portfolio. So many ways in which it's being done. Plus some of the big levers, like I already mentioned, are finding ways to get these giants like governments excited to partner and scale this. Large NGOs to collaborate with us and scale this. So these are on. So again, we are in, I would say in that sense, early stage of replicating the solution to multiple geographies and exponentially growing. So we will figure out ways to do it in the process. And if there are ideas, possibilities for collaboration, you can just look up with my name, and you can find me on LinkedIn and hit me up, and we can chat.
Excellent. I mean, this question came from your original narrative on the depth of the impact, because to some extent, it's also something that we are trying to do. I mean, before you scale up, you really need to get your act right in terms of providing a concrete solution, what you said in terms of solutions building. And then what happens is scale may not come the way you want it or somebody else expected. It comes in a certain way. And I think you have touched upon all the various points. And there is also that feeling that all these different things, it builds to the complexity of it. And normally in other ventures, it is like, okay, you do this one thing and multiply it by 100. But here it's not going to work like that. There are going to be some 100 variables, maybe may not be 100, but maybe 15. Like, you mentioned about the use case of the vegetable, and similarly the partnering that you do, etc. And so there has to be, there will be some way by which it will go forward, but it may not be very clear how quickly and how that may happen. I think that's a fantastic thing, because it's a completely different model, and it's not the standard model, which may not give the outcomes that you need or impact maybe 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Thank you very much. I think for paucity of time, I'm handing it back to Professor Rao. Though there are
thank you very much, Professor Prasad, and thank you, Satya, for this wonderful journey that you have taken us through. It's amazing. The climate sensitive journey and all the tools and techniques that are required for you to turbocharge this journey has been discussed thoroughly. I'm only trying to summarize 1 or 2 questions from the entire list of the questions. And meanwhile, I would like the audience to raise questions and ask them directly. In the meantime, I'm taking one. I'm clubbing it actually. What is the future of precision technology, precision agriculture? 1. Second, suggest any workable strategy for raising productivity in drought-prone and tribal areas in the shortest period. And please discuss the importance of post-harvest processing for value addition. Is there any suggestions you have for that post-harvesting, processing and the value additions there. So treat it as one question and you can respond to that. And then we'll come to the second one, which is in the box after you respond to this, Satya.
Sure. So maybe let me start with the last piece around the post-harvest. There is sensible work happening on that in that space too. So one of our Acumen fellows, Acumen investees, S4S Technologies is doing some incredible work in post-harvest value addition for vegetables. And there is another company, Our Foods, Hyderabad based. They are also doing interesting work with dry groceries, value addition, and making sure they sell. So there are many more use cases. So there is also a lot of funding available in that space, which is making it, I would say, more attractive for sure. So that, I mean, if anybody has a very specific question, happy to chat more. It's happening in honey. It's happening with multiple products. The post-harvest value addition and management. So the previous part of the question, which is regarding precision farming and ways to improve productivity and making agriculture work in drought-prone tribal areas. Kheyti greenhouses right there. Like most of the greenhouses we sold in the last, maybe like if I just put a percentage, more than 80% of the greenhouses we sold in the last 3 months have been sold in tribal areas, and which have moderate access to water, right? There is no river flowing there, have moderate access to water, and some areas which are fairly drought prone too. So considering that, this is definitely one of those technologies which can go. Besides this, if there is access to a little bit of water, see, a lot of times we also don't define drought properly. It also doesn't mean that there is no water at all. There is very little water. With that water, we feel it is inadequate for farming. So if there is that little water, there are these technologies, this Spouty, I think that's the name of the company, where they are trying to do a very low cost, solar-based drip irrigation system for growing vegetables and field crops. So that's again one of the technologies which can be looked at. And again, if there are more specific questions, people can just shoot them at me and I can take them up. But yes, there are ways to address. But one overarching, not so politically palatable statement that I would make is, we also shouldn't be obsessed that everybody who is doing farming today should do farming 5 years from now, 10 years from now. There are people for whom stacks, the risks and failures are, the probability wise, so much more than the probability of success. They don't have basic access to resources. Maybe in those areas, it is an overkill to assume that they should do farming and they should just be in the villages. So they, maybe it's in everybody's interest that they find a way to gradually move out of farming too. So just a thing to keep in mind. All right.
Great. Thank you very much for that response. I don't want to forget welcoming the Lieutenant Colonel Sukumaran, who joined after a long time. Welcome, sir. And also Professor Mahendra Reddy, our director, has joined. I want to tell you, Satya, that we would like to have you and your co-founders, the entire team at ICFAI, sometime when it is convenient to you. We've been very close to ICFAI, and I think near the campus, but we can come inside the campus and we'll have a small session or a kind of creating awareness among these youngsters. Even out of the 8,000 people that we have inside the campus at Hyderabad, even if say 5 of them take to this thing, it'll be a great achievement in my view. I think this has to be infectious. It has to inspire a few other youngsters as well. So one related question there is, how are you creating this awareness among small farmers about this technology? I mean, just awareness building exercise, how are you going about?
Yeah, so Mr. Sudhakar, for the point that you asked us around coming to the campus and testing, so absolutely count us in for that. what I cannot guarantee is whether all of us will be able to do it, because at any point of time, last few months, everybody has been in one state. So considering that, one different state as in, so considering that, at least, one of us will for sure make it and take this opportunity to interact with these incredible young minds with this wonderful institution. So with respect to how we spread awareness, so one, let's actually define what awareness is. So you hear so many things, but you take something seriously when it comes from a trusted source, right? So one thing that we do is we try to work with organizations who build this trust with farmers over decades, like Pradhan, Cine, Tata Trusts. These guys have built, they're just the TRIF. These organizations have done incredible work over decades of time, doing so many initiatives in rural areas, and their team comes, validates what this technology is, talks to the farmers. Once they are convinced, this solution goes through their ecosystem. So that is one way in which we also get to reach like a wider base of farmers, like, reaching hundreds of farmers or thousands of farmers or hundreds of thousands of farmers at whatever stage. All this becomes easier when you go through a channel which is trusted, right? And second thing is we also conduct village meetings. We would have done this in, I don't know how many thousands of villages. So in those village meetings, we, it's kind of get the farmers together, share what, understand. It's not just pushing a technology on the farmers, right? Understanding from them what the lived realities of farming for them are in those villages, and seeing whether our solution fits them. Like, for example, again, it's a little digression, but it still is a very relevant nuance. Designing for Bharat is very different. When you're really designing for Bharat, you need to keep in mind something like when we went and spoke to the farmers, we heard that, hey, the big problem for us to grow vegetables and fruits is monkey menace. Now, no farmer in Israel would ever say this probably, right? No European farmer would say this ever. But a farmer in India actually talks about it. So when we were designing the material which has to be used in the greenhouses, it had to be monkey proof in that sense, right? Now, which is very different from just a plastic sheet used in Israel or a plastic sheet used in Europe. So here, even if they tear, it shouldn't be, even if the nail hits onto that screen, it shouldn't be torn. So how do you design like that? And even if it's torn, how should it be easy to stitch? So it's a very different nuance when you're designing for Bharat. So that's a small digression I still wanted to just add. But so we hear these from the meetings that we do, right? And we see this when we go for the meeting. Oh, wow, all this is happening. So not only do we communicate about the greenhouse technology to the farmers and how it can potentially change their income pattern, but also we get to learn a lot in terms of how we should design our solution.
Amazing. That's an amazing thinking in the first place, actually. When you're so genuinely dedicated to making some difference on the ground, genuinely focused on delivering a solution like that, which is going to be owned by many people. Yeah, this kind of thinking works amazingly well. Thank you so much. I would like to now bring in Mr. Kaul, but there is one question I was tempted to ask, that is about designing for Bharat is very different. I totally agree with you. How can we propagate this question from one of the participants? How can we propagate cow-centered economy? Any thoughts on this? That was one question. You can think about it. Meanwhile, I'll put Arun Kaulji on the call. Arunji.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I must say this is a wonderful session that we've had. And I personally, I'm very impressed. I didn't know all this was happening. But I've got 2-3 small questions. One is that I presume that the cost of the greenhouse is the major cost in this project. So what is the life? Is there a life, 3 years, 5 years, number one? Number two, does it require regular maintenance? Like, you need to keep painting it or, changing certain things or whatever. And number three, what about major, cyclones and thunderstorms? So I was just curious to know about these things. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Arun Kaul. Great questions. This asset has a life of about 15 plus years. After about 6-7 years, there will be a 20-25% of cost that we incur to change the covering material, and then it stays. So that's one maintenance in our initial designs. So we have almost iterated till now. If I remove the minor improvements, we have done, I would say, 8 versions of this greenhouse for it to be where it is right now in this journey. And there were versions in between where I used to get calls in the middle of the night that the structure fell, and actually my sleep used to be off, right? It's not, what's keeping you up at night. It used to really keep me up, not metaphorically, but actually keep me up. But I'm so grateful to the incredible collaborations and the tireless effort that our team put in with farmers. Today, we have reasonably stabilized the structure in terms of maintenance. So there isn't, there aren't too many surprises like that which we encounter, that suddenly there is a structure that has fallen. So cyclones earlier, in fact, one of the biggest reasons for greenhouses to not take off in India is the gust of winds which we have in India. Again, that is a part of innovating for Bharat, right? So, and the approach conventionally that people used to take is, if the cyclone or those gust of winds can push it down, improve the strength, right? Again, I was deeply inspired by, I'm just retrofitting it. The Bruce Lee quote around water, be as strong as water, right? We took that kind of an approach. We didn't want to be as strong as a rock. We wanted to be as strong as water. So we said, hey, why do we have to build so much strength, etc.? Let's build net on all sides so that wind passes through. And if the wind is beyond certain level, then structure should not fall. Maybe, when sometime when people do visit our R&D facility or any farmer, you'll see on the side, there are clips with which we pin the net. Those clips are like 5 rupees each. Those clips break off beyond 100 kilometer wind speed. So, and once the clips break off, the net drops. And when the net drops, structure doesn't collapse. So this is again an example of innovating for Bharat. So we need to keep in mind the realities of what a smallholder farmer, what life they live, and managing maintenance is going to be a nightmare if our team has to constantly keep running around for repairs. So yeah, these are certain things that we have done.
Wonderful. Wishing you all the best in spreading your message.
Thank you, Mr. Arun. And regarding the cow-centered economy. In our journey of Kheyti, something that we have constantly done, super consciously actually, is keeping science at the center and navigating the solution or rolling out the solution, keeping in mind the emotions and motivations. Science is at the center. Now, I will look at cow not from a religious lens. I want to look at it from a scientific lens and what is the relevance of this for our overall agriculture. If anybody says that we will take cows, or let's for a moment, whether it is cows or buffaloes or ox or goats or bees, by taking this out of equation, if you want to build an agricultural ecosystem, we are only building a disaster. We are not building the country. We are only building a disaster. So we have to understand that biodiversity is the insurance or the shield behind which humanity is actually hiding. This is an important statement that we should remember and take away from this conversation. Biodiversity is the shield or insurance behind which humanity is hiding. And if we let this go, if we let cows go, if we let bees go, the microbial activity in the soils will start dropping, the entire ecology starts getting affected, and then over time we also get affected. So considering that, there is no question around importance of whether or not these are important. That's not even a question. Now, that said, I have a problem with the overemphasis that certain agenda-based actors run with certain, for example, cow. Those who actually talk about building cow, just talking about cow alone and keeping cow at the center, I ask them, how many of them are willing to take care of, cows actually in their houses, if they can, or in their farms, for about 5 years, how they will take care of the cow, and look at the life of that cow, look at that ecosystem, and then revisit certain things which come from a lot of deep emotional beliefs and spiritual or mythological orientations. So the reason why I'm saying this is I would again anchor this to how this becomes a more sensible and a sustainable way for us to build the ecology. But the moment we start anchoring it to, we have to make it only a cow-based environment or cow-based system, then we are actually trying to build with a bias that there is no other way and this is the only way in which we want to build it. And sadly, this can be an agenda that people who are not depending on agriculture can run. But people who are depending on agriculture are the ones who will suffer if we push agendas like this onto them. They are struggling to get 2 square meals a day. After that, please spread ideologies which may or may not feed them food. But till then, we have to anchor and optimize everything in the ecosystem to make sure that they first get those 2 square meals. So that is why I super love the fact that we need biodiversity, including cows. And I'm also super apprehensive and concerned about the amount of, overselling that is happening in terms of how that alone can fundamentally transform the entire agriculture ecosystem.
Amazing. I think that's a beautiful response to the agenda-driven questions, or those who could talk all the time about cow and how, rather than a large biodiversity that we need to build and sustain ourselves, our own human beings' lives also to be sustained behind that. That's a great point that you made, and in great detail that you have asked. So for want of time, I'm not dramatizing. What I would like to do is quick questions once again. That is, do you compare this to hydroponics? Is it one and the same? Is one of the participants would like to ask from you. Second one, do you use fertilizers and pesticides in greenhouses?
So is it hydroponics? Well, this is vertical farming, not hydroponics. Okay. So in vertical farming, we use height. So it's not, earlier agriculture was more about area. Now this is also about volume, right? So we look at it differently. So there is a third nuance which comes in L, B, and H in the discussion. In hydroponics, we assume that there is no need for soil, and we build a solution around just water and inert medium. That solution, we initially started with the hypothesis to test whether that was relevant for Bharat, but we realized it will fail in Bharat because hydroponics assumes uninterrupted supply of power, which is not the reality of Bharat today. So considering that, we decided not to do that. Plus, our soils, even today, the blessing is they are still decent. We don't need to completely dismiss them and go to inert medium. So that's not what we do. The second question regarding whether we use any fertilizers or pesticides, we believe, again, ecology or environment overall is something important in what we think about. So we believe that the practices what we follow should be gentle on the planet and they should be safe for the consumers. So we do a lot of preventive mechanisms. Like, first of all, when you have a net house which cuts off insects from all sides, generally they can't come. But once they come, they also find it difficult to go. Let me admit that. So there are natural ways in which we can prevent them. And we use a lot of bio traps, etc., to avoid using sprays. But still, if there is a need for sprays, After the neem oil is also part of our prescription, but if it is not getting resolved, we do recommend micro doses of synthetic sprays, as in, pesticides. The reason why it is important to understand this from the right nuance is it's like allopathic medicine, right? Find a way to avoid it, build a healthy lifestyle. All that is good. But if push comes to shove, in emergency, you still go to the super specialty hospital and get yourself treated. So that is the kind of approach. So maybe if a farmer outside uses like about 100 ml, we might talk about a micro dosing of about 3 to 5 ml to make sure that we are conscious and responsible. But it is not that what we do is 0% of those. So we try our best to avoid any residues, which is more an internal thing that we try for.
Great. So that's working towards gentle actions on the soil. Amazing. I think we have come more or less to an end of it, but there is one last one which I'm tempted to ask is there any reimagining and redefining of seed banks happening? So that's one last question I have.
It's a great question, very difficult problem right now. See, it's a multi-variable optimization. So I would rather, it's a nuanced answer, definitely. There is one, like if I think of step one for farmers, getting them a reliable, dependable income. Till that happens, trying to optimize for ecology at the cost of this is going to be a losing battle, right? The good news is once you get this to happen, then Brazil and a lot of Amazon rainforest areas, people talk about, only indigenous groups are the ones that we have, and we have to work only with them to really build the world. In India, it's a very different lived reality. Farmers are the people who are closest to farms, and there is so much that they can do. So once we cross that barrier of some reliable, dependable income, farmers are genuinely wonderful people, motivated for a lot of good reasons. And think about it. Despite losing money so consistently, they are waging this battle. So there is so much optimism in them left, right? So it is possible to build more biodiversity. I'll use seed banks as, what are they ultimately doing? They're going to preserve native varieties, and they will help in greater biodiversity and seeds which have greater climate resilience. That's what seed banks fundamentally do. So those objectives we can meet, but before that, we need to make sure that that reliable, dependable income step is crossed. Without that, trying to wage that battle is just a perverse incentive. They don't have an incentive to do that when their stomachs are hungry. So that's how I look at it.
Wonderful. The immediate concerns of the farmers are elsewhere, actually. I think we need to address that first, rather than trying to optimize at the cost of ecology. So I think that is a wonderful way of resolving it. Thank you so much, Sathya. I can't thank you enough, actually speaking. Professor Prasad, I think we will wrap it up. Would you like to butt in with a question?
I mean, there are many questions, but I think we have a paucity of time, so I'll keep it at that.
Fantastic. I will do a super quick summary for the benefit of our participants who have been joining regularly over the 91. This is the 91st week, as I mentioned. Sathya, thank you very much. This is a blockbuster session on a topic that is agriculture, very unconventional for most of us. Let me admit that even in your presentation, you mentioned that a large number of people do not focus on this, and it has become unattractive over the years, even for discussion's sake. But brilliant youngsters like you getting into it and trying to find solutions at scale is something pretty interesting. If we sit down and the proverbial sit down and think about it kind of a session that you have made. So thank you so much for your time, expertise, and energy in bringing this kind of awareness to all of us. And there are many interesting points. We'll write a summary and share with you, but I'm talking to the audience. We'll share a summary, we'll write a summary and share with you. But beautifully, some of the points that are etched in my mind is this precision and sharpness and smartness with which they have worked on what is called the root cause of the problem and built a solution up from there. I think working on the soil so dedicatedly makes them the sons and daughters of the soil in one way. I think this is the real way of giving back to the planet on which we have lived, learned, and developed ourselves, grown ourselves. So giving back to that is an amazing thing. Even if it is not so philosophical, in a matter-of-factly way, how do we bring people above the poverty line? I think that's a very important thing that has been addressed. The unreliable income levels from plantation to harvesting, the sinusoidal one, which actually skates through the poverty line, ups and downs, has resulted in several suicides in our country, especially in Telangana, Andhra, and other states as well. That has been risen above that line of poverty. Although it is a bit sinusoidal, it is well above the basic poverty line. I think that's the crux of the achievement, and I would be completely doffing my hat to this young team for doing that. That's an amazing thing. May you grow in number, may the tribe grow much stronger, and that large number of people, large number of farmers that you are targeting, may that be achieved at the earliest. That is 1 million in a decade that you are talking about. Sustainable and scalable social enterprise that you have built is not just a lesson to those people who are interested in social enterprises, but I think the precision with which you handle and your journey, I think those lessons are there for those who are dealing with non-social enterprises as well. That's an additional takeaway that we have. And one more takeaway, which is applicable everywhere, is listening to the unheard voices. I think you have spent a great deal of time in explaining this. Even I have really liked it. It has endeared many of us. How did you listen to these unheard voices? And any design thinking, which is what you have done, any design thinking process, without allocating sufficient time and efficient resources to navigate that and make it owned by a large number of people after you have come out of that particular territory or the field of activity, is not going to sustain. We have heard some of these stories in islands of excellence in our country all the time. Somewhere in Ladakh, someone has done that. Somewhere in Maharashtra, someone has done that. And in few corporates, we have done that. In some of there is one organization which is bigger than the big 4 consulting firms, where they do design thinking and they talk about all kinds of things. But right now, designing for Bharat and making sure that we witness the results of what we do right in front of us, and making sure that a large number of people rise above poverty line. I think this is a great marriage of philosophy, great marriage of purpose, and thinking big, which is working for a country like ours. So that's something beautifully articulated, and you have all the lessons to give for all of us to define impact and measure it throughout. Which organization would not like to define its impact and measure it? I think everything is applied. Members who have attended today will also take home a beautiful message, and with this I'm closing, is that biodiversity is the insurance or the shield behind which the humanity is hiding. We will do well not to disturb that. I think that's an amazing takeaway for all of us, and many other takeaways will come back to you in the form of a summary, and we'll also consult Sathya to look at that summary before we publish it. Ladies and gentlemen and friends, thank you so much. More than that, amazing sense of gratitude and pride I have in hosting Sathya today, this evening. Thank you, Sathya. Thanks to you and your entire team.
Thank you very much for all the kind words. And one closing comment from my side is that 10 years ago, or roughly 10 years ago when we started this, we barely had anybody who even thought that we would last 6 months in this. Right? And some bit of endurance and some bit of external validation, like these earth shots, will started giving us a bit of credibility that, okay, we are serious about what we said 10 years ago. So there's nothing new that we are saying. We have been saying that, and we want to do this journey for long. And in this journey, it is super important to acknowledge that there are incredible people. Some of them might be the ones who are sitting as participants, or the ones moderating this, people like this who have who just engaged. He said, hey, let's just catch up and have a conversation. And from those conversations, so much came, so many beautiful things happened. And I'm a true believer in these serendipitous conversations which can go places. So I left my LinkedIn address. Please reach out if you think you at least want to have a conversation. I have every week a lot of conversations with new people whom I haven't met. So please reach out, and happy to set up time, learn more. I'm in Hyderabad. If anybody is around, I can meet up and find a way to collaborate and co-create something that we all collectively can leave behind for our children and grandchildren.
Amazing way to collaborate and leave behind something our children can be proud of and use it. So beautiful. We will definitely connect with you. As I said, ICFAI would like to invite you, and we'll do a small session and we'll keep talking about it. I think in one session, 2 sessions, we may not be able to generate some far-reaching solutions, but I'm sure at least if we infectiously talk to some youngsters on the ground, I'm sure they go back and sow these seeds elsewhere across the country. I want to not forget one important thing. I want to thank Vice Srinivas Rao, my team member, my esteemed team member who has collaborated and coordinated with you for a long time. Thank you so much, Srinivas Rao Garu, for your efforts. And I want to thank all the members who have joined today. Keep reading about Kheyti and Cosmos Green, and I'm sure we'll emerge richer. See you next week, same time, Friday, 6:30 p.m. on 10th of February. We are bringing in the CEO of T-Hub to understand how it has been a catalyst for entrepreneurship and innovation in the Telangana ecosystem that we have. So we look forward to seeing you next Friday. Thank you so much, Sathya, and all of you.